Alright guys, so in this video we're going to be talking about EC2 Hibernate and what this actually is. So first of all, EC2 Hibernate is nothing else but an option that should be enabled while creating your instance. And not all EC2 instances support the Hibernate option. There's only like T3 Micro and C5 or something like that. Those ones support EC2 Hibernate, and I'll show it to you in a minute. And then other than that, EC2 Hibernate actually costs more than the stop option, and it doesn't cost much, so you don't have to bug out about it. It's like a few cents. So there's that. And then to hibernate, it means to pause your EC2 instance. So this is my EC2 instance, right? And when we use the hibernate option, what it means is it basically means that we are pausing our EC2 instance, okay? And by EC2 instance, I mean it's my server. So basically we're pausing our server for like however many minutes you want it to, okay? And then how it works is when you use EC2 Hibernate or Hibernate itself, then what happens is everything that you have saved into your server or EC2 instance, it gets paused, and the data that you have, it gets stored inside your RAM temporarily. So I'm just gonna write down here memory or RAM, okay? So everything gets stored here temporarily, okay? And when you resume it, then you still have your data, and it still comes back to your server. That's the simplest way I can define it. So there's that. And you guys might be wondering, well, when do we use this? So you use the EC2 Hibernate when you have long-running apps that take time to initialize, and also for like development environments and environments where you would need to stop or pause your EC2 instance. Not stop, but I would say pause your EC2 instance for like a few minutes or whatever. So there's that. And also for like applications that run in memory state. So I'm assuming you guys know what that means. But yeah, this is the use case for EC2 Hibernate. And the difference between instance stop and hibernate is that on instance stop, everything that you have inside your EC2 gets completely wiped out, so you have literally nothing else. When you start your EC2 instance back again, it would be like a complete new instance, or everything would be wiped out. But as with Hibernate, like I said, you pause it, data gets stored inside RAM temporarily, and then you can resume it back and you would still have your data left. So enough of yapping, let me show you guys how this works. So what you have to do is you have to go to your EC2 instance services, and then once you're here, then what you have to do is click on launch instance, and I'm gonna click on launch without a walkout, and then I'm gonna name my instance. So I'm gonna name it instance instance A, okay? And then I'm gonna choose Amazon Linux as my AMI. And then like I said, for instance type, Hibernate only works with like T3 Micro and C5 or something like that, but just in this case I'm going to be using T3 Micro, which is like the most used instance type. And then I'm going to do SSH to my instance, so I'm going to create one here, and I'm going to say for YouTube. There we go. I'm going to create my key pair. And then after that, I'm going to allow SSH. We don't need HTTP access or internet access or anything like that. And then what you have to do is you have to click on advanced settings, okay? And right here what you have to do is scroll down a little bit until you see hibernate behavior. Right here what you have to do is you have to enable hibernate, okay? And once you have enabled hibernate, then it will ask you to also enable EBS encryption volume, okay? So what you have to do is you have to do the same thing here. You have to enable EBS, you have to enable EBS encryption as well. So I'm gonna enable this as well. Now, the reason why it's asking us to enable this is because, like I said, when you save data in your EC2 instances, it gets saved into EBS volume. So the pause that we are making in this EC2 Hibernate, the data that we have inside our EC2, it gets saved into EBS. That's why when we resume it, it gives it back to us. So that's why we need to enable encryption on EBS. But other than that, that's pretty much it. And just simply click on launch instance. And this will take like a few minutes depending on your machine and stuff. So there's that. Let me go to instances. And as you can see, it says running, initializing. So we need to wait a few more minutes or seconds for this to initialize. So as you guys can see, the status checks has been passed, 3 out of 3. And to show you the instance that it is Hibernate, as you guys can see, inside under the details tab, if you scroll down a little bit, you will see that it says Hibernate is enabled. All right, now just to show you guys how EC2 Hibernate works, let me pull up my terminal real quick. So I'm gonna go to my terminal here, and let me clear all this up. Okay, cool. So I am inside my downloads folder, which is nice. Now what I'm gonna do is I am gonna SSH into my EC2 instance, okay, which is instance A, the running one right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do SSH flag I, and then my key pair name, I believe it was called D4 YouTube tube.pem, and then I'm gonna give my public IP here. So user, EC2-user add, then 32.195.72.236, my public IP here. And I'm gonna press enter. Sorry, okay. I have a little typo here. It's SSH. There we go. And yes. Okay, I need to change the permission on this file. D4 YouTube.pem. There we go. Now if I run it back, this time it should work. Yeah, there we go. And if I say who am I, these are all Linux commands, by the way, the who am I and how to connect to your EC2 instance and all that stuff. So if you don't know Linux, then it's going to be a bit hard for you to understand all these. But anyways, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how EC2 Hibernate works. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file, and to create a file, I'm going to simply say nano. It's an editor. It's a Linux terminal editor called nano. And then I'm going to call it something like notes.txt. Okay? I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to write something down here. I'm simply going to say subscribe to Quantum Web. Okay? There we go. Now what you have to do is Control O, enter, and then Control X. There we go. Now if I do ls, it will show us our file, which is called notes.txt. And if I want to read this file, then I'm going to go with cat and then notes.txt. And there we go. It says subscribe to Quantum Web. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And one more thing I want to do is just to show you like how the processing works with EC2 Hibernate. I'm going to do sudo and then yum install. I'm going to install this, you can call it a package, I guess, called TMUX. TMUX is nothing else, but basically it's just, it means terminal multiplexer, and I know it sounds fancy, but it's simply, it lets you run terminal sessions that stay alive even if you like disconnect from your EC2 instance and stuff. So yeah, there's that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to TMUX here, Okay, there you go. And then I'm gonna run this command called watch date. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do here is so Control B and then D. There you go. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now let's hibernate our EC2 instance. So I'm going to click on instance state, and then I'm going to choose hibernate instance. Yes, hibernate this. And it will take a few minutes. So as you can see, it says stopping. I'm going to pause this video, and once it's done, I'm going to resume it back. So there you go. As you guys can see, it's stopped. And if I pull up my terminal, as you can see, it says that the system will hibernate now, so it's basically hibernating. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to instance state, and then I'm going to click on start instance. And this will also take a few minutes for my instance to start. Now we don't need this terminal anymore, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to terminate this terminal. Yes, I'm going to open a new one. So we can SSH into our new terminal, and yeah, as you can see, my instance is also running, so that's cool. I'm gonna go back to CD downloads folder, and then I'm gonna do SSH into my new, not new, but the same EC2 instance, but the public IP changes every time we stop it and then start it again. So that's why I need to give the new public IP. So 100.52.188.122, and let's click on enter, and yes. Okay, there you go. And if I type who am I, there you go, I'm an EC2 user. And then if I check the file that we created, which was called notes, now if I type in ls, it should show us our file back. Now if I click enter or press enter, as you can see, it says notes.txt, and we can also read this as well. So cat notes.txt, and yeah, it says subscribe to Quantum Web, and yeah guys, please subscribe to Quantum Web. And then other than that, the service, we installed the terminal multiplexer. So to run that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do tmux and then attach, and I'm going to click enter or press enter, and as you guys can see, our service is running as well. So Control B and then D here, and I can also use ping, and I'm going to ping to Google from here, and yeah, press enter. As you guys can see, it's working. Now if we had stopped our EC2 instance, then we wouldn't be seeing any of these. Like we wouldn't be seeing our file, the notes file that I showed you guys, and then the process that was still running, the tmux that I showed you here. So yeah, none of these would be running if we had stopped our EC2 instance. So this is how Hibernate works. And yeah, if you learned something new, please make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.